The CEO boss stood in the marble lobby with a passport in one hand and her pride in the other, ready to propose a business arrangement to her janitor, never suspecting that the man pushing the mop could write a check for her entire company without blinking. Before we dive into the story, if you believe in true love and also believe one can find love through some unexpected situations, then do well to subscribe to this channel. Clinton Anderson had perfected the art of being invisible. At 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, he pushed his cleaning cart across the gleaming marble floors of Sterling Commercial Plaza's 18th floor, his reflection ghosting across windows that overlooked a city he technically owned pieces of. The irony wasn't lost on him, $8.3 billion in assets, and here he was, earning $16.50 an hour to empty trash bins. Still here, Clinton. He looked up to find Olivia Chen standing in her office doorway, blazer discarded, sleeves rolled up to her elbows. Even exhausted, she radiated the kind of intensity that had built Apex Innovations from a dorm room algorithm into a $200 million empire in just 3 years. Her dark skin seemed to glow under the harsh fluorescent lights, and her eyes, always observant, always calculating, softened slightly when they met his. "Last floor of the night, Ms. Chen," he replied, keeping his voice neutral, his posture slightly hunched. 6 months of playing this role had taught him that people saw what they expected to see. "I've told you a million times, it's Olivia." She stepped out, holding a steaming mug. "Coffee? I made too much." Again. This was their ritual. 3 nights a week, sometimes 4, she'd still be here when he arrived for the night shift. And unlike the other executives who treated him like human furniture, Olivia always acknowledged him. Always said thank you. Always saw him as a person rather than a service. "I appreciate it," Clinton said, accepting the mug. Their fingers brushed briefly, hers warm, his calloused from manual labor he didn't actually need to do. "You know," Olivia leaned against the wall, studying him with that penetrating gaze that made him occasionally wonder if his cover was blown, "you don't talk like most janitors I've met." Clinton's heart skipped. "That's so. Last week, you used the word paradigm correctly in a sentence. The week before, you quoted Nietzsche." She smiled, but there was curiosity behind it. "Who are you really, Clinton Anderson?" If only you knew, he thought. Instead, he shrugged. "Community college dropout with a good memory. Read a lot of books I probably shouldn't have wasted time on. I don't think reading is ever wasted time." She sipped her coffee, and for a moment, they stood in comfortable silence. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure. Do you ever feel like you're living the wrong life? Like you're playing a role that doesn't quite fit?" The question hit him like a punch to the sternum. Clinton gripped his mop handle tighter. "Every single day." Olivia's eyes widened slightly. Whatever answer she'd expected, it wasn't raw honesty. "Yeah," she said softly. "Me too." Before he could respond, her phone buzzed. She glanced at it and her expression shifted, jaw tightening, shoulders squaring. The vulnerable woman who'd asked about wrong lives disappeared, replaced by the CEO who'd been called ruthless by Forbes. "Problem?" Clinton asked. "My visa application for the Singapore Tech Conference got denied. 3rd time." She exhaled sharply. "My chief operations officer is getting married there next month, and I need to attend both events. The conference could mean a $50 million contract, but without that visa." She trailed off, staring at her phone like it had personally betrayed her. Clinton knew he should stay quiet, should keep pushing his mop and maintain his invisibility. But 6 months of watching Olivia work herself to exhaustion, 6 months of late-night conversations that felt more real than anything in his previous life, 6 months of seeing someone who treated people with genuine decency, it made him reckless. "There might be another way," he said carefully. She looked up. "What do you mean?" "Married couples get spousal visas processed faster. Priority treatment." He kept his tone casual, as if he wasn't about to say something insane. "If you had a husband, you'd be in Singapore in 2 weeks." Olivia stared at him. Then she laughed, a short, surprised sound. Are you suggesting I get married for a visa? She stopped. Her eyes narrowed. Actually, that's not terrible. It would be temporary. A business arrangement. Exactly, Clinton said, wondering what the hell he was doing. I'd need someone trustworthy. Someone who wouldn't try to exploit the situation or make demands. She was thinking out loud now, pacing. Someone who understands it's purely transactional and would sign an airtight prenup. Clinton watched her pace, watched the gears turning behind those sharp eyes. He should stop this. Should let it go. Should. Olivia stopped walking. Stopped talking. Turned to face him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Clinton, she said slowly. How would you like to make $100,000? The mop handle nearly slipped from his grip. What would you do if someone offered you a fortune for a favor? Would you take it, or would you worry about the strings attached? Drop your thoughts below. Clinton's first instinct was to laugh. His second was to wonder if this was some kind of test. His third, the one that won, was to recognize that Olivia Chen was completely serious. You want to marry me, he said flatly, still gripping the mop like it was the only solid thing in a world that had suddenly tilted sideways. I want to hire you, Olivia corrected, her business mind already 3 steps ahead. For a temporary marriage. 6 months, maybe 8. Long enough to satisfy visa requirements and immigration scrutiny. You'd sign a prenup protecting both parties, we'd maintain separate residences, and when it's done, we file for divorce citing irreconcilable differences. Clean, simple, professional. For $100,000. That's more than you'd make in 3 years of night shifts. She wasn't being cruel, just factual. Think about it, Clinton. You could go back to school. Start something. Change your life. I could buy this entire building before your next board meeting, Clinton thought. What he said was, why me? The question seemed to catch her off guard. Olivia's confidence flickered, and for a moment, she looked almost vulnerable. Because in 6 months of working here, you're the only person who's treated me like a human being instead of a bank account or a networking opportunity. You don't want anything from me. The irony was so sharp it could cut glass. And because, she continued, her voice softer now, I trust you. I don't trust easily, Clinton. But I trust you. Those words landed harder than any business proposition could. Clinton set down his mop, bought himself a moment to think. This was insane. Completely insane. He was a billionaire playing dress-up, and she wanted to marry him for paperwork. The ethical implications alone were staggering. But another part of him, the part that had spent 6 months discovering that Olivia Chen was perhaps the only person in his social stratosphere worth knowing, that part was intensely curious about what would happen if he said yes. I need time to think, he said. Of course. Olivia's professional mask slipped back into place. Take 24 hours. Meet me here tomorrow night, same time. If you say no, we never speak of this again and nothing changes between us. If you say yes. She pulled out her phone, typed rapidly, and his ancient flip phone buzzed a moment later. That's my personal number. We'll meet with my lawyer Friday. Clinton looked at his phone, a burner he'd bought at a convenience store specifically because it was the opposite of his previous life's latest model smartphones. And if immigration investigates? If they think it's fraud? Then we make it believable. Olivia met his eyes. We'd need to spend time together. Public appearances. Social media posts. Maybe even. She hesitated. My family would need to believe it too. My mother is already pressuring me about marriage. She'd actually be thrilled, regardless of who the groom is. Your family, Clinton repeated. You'd introduce your janitor husband to your family. I'd introduce my husband to my family, Olivia said firmly. What you do for work is irrelevant. And honestly, my mother would prefer you to the venture capitalists and tech bros I usually date. At least you have actual human emotions. Despite everything, Clinton smiled. You don't date much, do you? I built a $200 million company by 24. Dating seemed inefficient. She returned the smile, and something shifted in the air between them, a recognition of shared loneliness that neither of them had acknowledged until now. So that's a point in favor of this arrangement. We're both married to our work anyway. Might as well make it literal. Clinton knew he should walk away. Should tell her the truth right now, I'm Robert Anderson's son. I inherited an empire. This entire thing is built on a lie you don't even know exists. Instead, he heard himself say, I'll give you an answer tomorrow. Fair enough. Olivia picked up her blazer from inside her office. I should let you finish your work. And Clinton? She paused in the doorway. Whatever you decide, thank you for not laughing in my face. Most people would have. After she left, Clinton stood alone in the empty office, surrounded by the trappings of Olivia's success. Awards on the walls. Industry magazines with her face on the cover. Framed photos of her team celebrating milestones. Not a single personal photograph. No family snapshots. No vacation pictures. Just work, work, work. He pulled out his real phone, a sleek device hidden in his locker downstairs, and called the one person who knew his secret. Thomas? It's me. Clinton. His father's former attorney and current trustee sounded amused. It's midnight. Let me guess, you've finally decided to end this experiment and rejoin civilization. Not exactly. Clinton sank into Olivia's desk chair, feeling like an imposter in more ways than one. I need advice. Personal, not legal. This should be interesting. If you met someone genuine, intelligent, kind, and they asked you to do something that was technically legal but ethically complicated, and you knew that agreeing would mean living a lie on top of the lie you're already living, but refusing would mean possibly losing the only real connection you've made in years. He trailed off. What would you do? Silence. Then, Clinton, what happened? She asked me to marry her. The CEO. Ms. Chen. Thomas sounded genuinely shocked. She knows. No. She thinks I'm actually a janitor. She needs a marriage for visa purposes. Business arrangement. She's offering $100,000. The laugh that came through the phone was long and slightly hysterical. Let me get this straight. A woman who built a 9-figure company wants to pay you, an 8-figure billionaire, to marry her, and she has no idea who you really are. 8-figure is underselling it, and yes. This is either the beginning of a romantic comedy or a tragedy. I genuinely can't tell which. Clinton rubbed his temples. Helpful, Thomas. Very helpful. All right, actual advice. The amusement faded from Thomas's voice. Your father spent his whole life not knowing if people loved him or his money. You started this experiment to find authenticity. Well, congratulations, you found it. She's treating you like an equal, trusting you, and seeing you as a person. That's what you wanted, isn't it? Yes, but nothing. The question is, are you brave enough to see where this goes? Or are you going to hide behind your mop forever? After hanging up, Clinton sat in the darkness of Olivia's office for another hour. Through the window, the city sprawled below him, his city, in many ways. His father had built shipping routes that sustained it. His inherited companies employed thousands of its residents. But none of that had ever felt as real as Olivia handing him coffee at midnight and asking who he really was. He pulled out his flip phone and typed a message to her number, I'll do it. Let's talk tomorrow. Her response came 30 seconds later, thank you. You won't regret this. Clinton looked at the message and thought, I already do. The law office of Mitchell and Associates occupied the 42nd floor of a building Clinton's trust fund technically owned 17% of. He'd been here before, 3 years ago, when his father was still alive and dragging him to meetings about estate planning and succession strategies. Back then, he'd worn Tom Ford suits and Swiss watches that cost more than most people's cars. Today, he wore his janitor uniform. "You could have changed," Olivia said as they rode the elevator up. She'd dressed down too, jeans and a blazer instead of her usual power suits, but still managed to look like she belonged in boardrooms. "Didn't have time," Clinton lied. Truth was, he needed the reminder of who he was supposed to be. The uniform was armor against slipping up. "Well, my lawyer might judge, but that's kind of his default setting anyway." She smiled nervously, fingers drumming against her thigh. "Fair warning, Richard Mitchell is intense. He handled my business incorporation, 2 patent disputes, and once made a venture capitalist cry during negotiations." Clinton already knew Richard Mitchell. The man had been at his father's funeral, had shaken Clinton's hand and expressed condolences that felt rehearsed. But Richard Mitchell had never seen the heir to the Anderson fortune in a janitor's uniform, so Clinton was betting on anonymity. The bet paid off. "Ms. Chen," Richard stood as they entered, his handshake firm and his gaze dismissive as it slid over Clinton. "And this must be Mr. Anderson." "Clinton, please." He kept his voice level, his posture slightly hunched. Playing poor was like method acting, you had to commit fully. "Right. Clinton." Richard gestured to chairs that probably cost more than Clinton's supposed monthly salary. "Let's get down to business. Ms. Chen has explained the nature of this arrangement. I've drafted a prenuptial agreement that protects both parties, though I'll be frank, the primary concern here is protecting Ms. Chen's assets and business interests." "Of course," Clinton said, "because that's what someone in his supposed position would say." Richard slid a document across the desk, 47 pages of legal jargon that Clinton could have written himself, given his actual background. He'd been groomed since childhood to understand contracts, leverages, and loopholes. "The key points," Richard continued, his tone suggesting he was explaining quantum physics to a child, "are as follows. This marriage is a legal arrangement for immigration purposes. You waive all rights to Ms. Chen's business, personal assets, and any future earnings. In exchange, you receive $100,000, $50,000 upon marriage, $50,000 upon divorce. You will maintain separate residences, though you'll need to appear as a couple in public settings. Any violation of the agreement's terms results in immediate termination and forfeiture of remaining payment." Clinton skimmed the document, noting the clauses about infidelity, forbidden for both parties, public behavior, must appear affectionate but professional, and duration, 6 to 8 months, flexible based on visa requirements. "There's also an NDA," Richard added. "You cannot discuss the nature of this arrangement with anyone. Ever. Violation results in a $500,000 penalty." "I could pay that penalty with the interest my accounts generate in a week," Clinton thought. What he said was, "Seems thorough. It needs to be." Richard leaned back, studying Clinton with the warmth of a tax audit. "No offense, Mr. Anderson, but marriages of convenience are scrutinized heavily by immigration services. If they suspect fraud, both parties face serious legal consequences. Are you prepared for that level of commitment to a deception?" The irony was so thick Clinton could taste it. "I understand the risks. Do you?" Richard's skepticism was palpable. "Because Ms. Chen is risking her reputation, her business, and potentially her freedom." "What are you risking?" "You're getting paid 6 figures to pretend to be married for a few months." "Forgive me for noting the disparity." Olivia stiffened. "Richard." "It's fine," Clinton interrupted, meeting the lawyer's eyes. "You're right. The stakes aren't equal. She's risking more. But you're wrong about what I'm risking." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "I'm risking the only honest relationship I've had in years. If this goes wrong, I lose something I can't put a price on. Silence filled the office. Olivia stared at him, something unreadable in her expression. Richard's eyebrows climbed toward his hairline. Well, the lawyer said finally, that was unexpectedly articulate he caught himself. For someone in your position. I read a lot, Clinton said dryly, using his standard excuse. They spent the next hour reviewing details. Clinton would need to provide documentation, birth certificate, social security card, proof of residence. They'd need to apply for the marriage license, wait the mandatory period, then have a simple civil ceremony. After that, Olivia would file for her spousal visa. They'd need to pass a marriage interview with immigration, and maintain the appearance of a legitimate relationship. One more thing, Richard said as they prepared to leave. You'll need a cover story. How you met, how long you've dated, why you're getting married. Immigration officers are trained to spot inconsistencies. Your stories need to match perfectly. We met at work, Olivia said immediately. 6 months ago. We've been dating for 4 months, keeping it quiet because of workplace dynamics. We're getting married because. She glanced at Clinton. Because when you know, you know. Too vague, Richard said. Give them something specific. Something memorable. Clinton thought about their midnight conversations, the coffee she always made too much of, the way she was the only person in the building who saw him as human. Because she's the first person who ever made me feel like myself, he said quietly. Both Olivia and Richard stared at him. That's. Olivia's voice was soft. That's perfect, actually. Richard cleared his throat. Yes, well. Stick with that. Now, Ms. Chen, I need to speak with you privately about the business implications. Clinton stepped into the waiting area, his heart hammering. He'd just signed papers committing himself to marry a woman who didn't know his real name. Well, she knew his real name, but not his real name. The distinction was starting to give him a headache. His phone buzzed. Not the flip phone, his real phone, the one hidden in his jacket pocket. A message from Thomas, board meeting Tuesday. Your presence requested. They're getting restless about the absent heir. Clinton deleted the message. The board could wait. They'd been waiting 6 months, another few weeks wouldn't kill them. Ready? Olivia emerged from the office, her expression difficult to read. As I'll ever be. They rode the elevator down in silence. When they reached the lobby, all marble and chrome and wealth, Olivia stopped walking. What you said up there, she began, not quite meeting his eyes. About risking an honest relationship. Did you mean that? Clinton could have backtracked. Could have played it off as strategy, as playing his role convincingly. Instead, he told the truth, or at least, a version of it. Every word. I've been thinking, Olivia said, her fingers twisting the strap of her bag, about what happens if this works. If we pull it off. We spend 6 months pretending to be married, and then we just, what? Go back to being strangers. I hadn't thought that far ahead. I have. I always think ahead, it's kind of my thing. She finally looked at him, and her vulnerability was startling. I don't have many friends, Clinton. I don't have time for them. But these last 6 months, talking to you at midnight, having someone who doesn't want anything from me except conversation. I don't want to lose that. You won't, Clinton promised, ignoring the voice in his head screaming about the irony. Whatever happens, you won't lose that. She smiled, genuine and relieved. Okay. Good. So, future husband, want to grab dinner? We should probably practice looking like a couple. Plus, I'm starving, and there's a taco truck 2 blocks away that does amazing al pastor. Clinton Anderson, secret billionaire, heir to an $8.3 billion fortune, found himself saying yes to street tacos with more enthusiasm than he'd felt about anything in months. As they walked through the city, Olivia's arm brushing against his, Clinton realized something terrifying. he wasn't just pretending anymore. The taco truck was called Miguel's Mobile Kitchen, and it was parked in a spot that probably violated at least 3 city ordinances. Clinton had passed it 100 times during his janitor shifts, never stopping. In his previous life, he'd eaten at restaurants where a single appetizer cost more than Miguel's entire evening revenue. The Al Pastor tacos cost $3.50 each. They were the best thing Clinton had tasted in 6 months. "You eat like you've never had real food before," Olivia observed, amused, as he demolished his 3rd taco. "I haven't," Clinton admitted. "Not like this." It was true, in a way. He'd had plenty of food, just none that came without pretense or a Michelin star attached. They sat on a bench in a pocket park, the city humming around them. Olivia had kicked off her heels, her feet tucked under her, looking more relaxed than Clinton had ever seen her. Without the armor of her office and her CEO persona, she was just Olivia. A 24-year-old woman who'd worked herself half to death building an empire and forgot to build a life. "Tell me something real," she said suddenly. "Something you've never told anyone else." Clinton's stomach clenched. "That's a dangerous question. We're about to get married. Shouldn't we know at least one true thing about each other?" He thought about the mansion sitting empty in his name, the board meetings he was skipping, the fortune he couldn't spend. Then he thought about what was true regardless of the money. "I'm terrified," he said quietly. "Every single day. That I'll wake up and realize I've wasted my entire life being the wrong person." Olivia was quiet for a long moment. "My mother had me when she was 42, she said finally. "Everyone told her she was too old, that she should focus on her career. She was a nurse, worked double shifts, raised me alone after my father left. She sacrificed everything so I could have opportunities she never did." She stared at her hands. "Now I have those opportunities, and I'm terrified I'm wasting them by becoming exactly what she sacrificed to save me from, someone who only knows how to work." "Is that why you're doing this? Marriage?" "Partly. The visa is real, I need it for the Singapore deal. But also..." She hesitated. "My mother keeps asking when I'm going to settle down, give her grandchildren, and find happiness outside of quarterly earnings reports. This buys me time. Proves I'm trying, even if it's fake." "It doesn't have to be completely fake," Clinton said, the words escaping before he could stop them. Olivia turned to look at him, her eyes searching. "What do you mean?" "I mean, we're going to be legally married. We're going to spend time together, appear in public, convince immigration we're real." "Why not?" He struggled to articulate the thought forming. "Why not use this as an opportunity? To actually be friends. To have something real, even if the foundation is artificial." "A genuine fake marriage," Olivia said, a smile tugging at her lips. "That's very philosophical for a janitor. Community college dropout, remember?" "Right." But her tone suggested she was beginning to question that story. "You know what? Yes. Let's do it. Let's have the most authentic fraudulent marriage in history." They shook on it, her hand small and warm in his, and Clinton felt the weight of his deception settle heavier on his shoulders. This woman was offering him genuine friendship, real connection, while he was lying about everything except his first name. "So, husband-to-be," Olivia said, "what do real couples do on Friday nights?" "I genuinely don't know. I've been on maybe 5 actual dates in my entire life." "I'm not much better," Clinton admitted. "But I think they probably don't discuss prenuptial agreements and immigration fraud." "Fair point." She pulled out her phone. "How about a movie? There's a theater 3 blocks away. We should be seen together anyway, start building our paper trail." "A paper trail sounds romantic." "Shut up." But she was laughing, and the sound was light and genuine and completely at odds with the serious CEO he'd watched command boardrooms. They ended up seeing some action movie Clinton immediately forgot because he spent the entire 2 hours hyper-aware of Olivia beside him, the way she whispered sarcastic commentary during the slow parts, how she unconsciously leaned against his shoulder during the loud explosions, the fact that this felt more like a real date than any of the carefully orchestrated dinners he'd attended in his previous life. Walking her to her car afterward, Clinton caught their reflection in a store window, a janitor and a CEO, looking for all the world like two people who actually belonged together. Same time Monday? Olivia asked. We need to apply for the marriage license. It's a date. He paused. A fake date. For our fake marriage. That we're making authentically real. We really need to work on our terminology. She squeezed his hand once, briefly, before climbing into her Tesla. Good night, Clinton. Good night, Olivia. Driving back to his modest apartment, not the mansion, never the mansion, Clinton called Thomas again. I'm in too deep, he said without preamble. Obviously. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Clinton didn't have an answer. The New York City Marriage Bureau was possibly the least romantic place Clinton had ever been, and he'd once attended a shareholders' meeting where grown men argued for 3 hours about toilet paper bulk purchasing. Next. The clerk's voice carried the enthusiasm of someone who'd processed 17,000 marriages and stopped believing in love around number 3,000. Clinton and Olivia approached the window together. She'd dressed carefully for this, a sundress that said, hopeful bride, instead of her usual, corporate warrior, aesthetic. Clinton had worn the nicest clothes he supposedly owned, khakis and a button-down shirt that had cost him $29.99 at Target. In his closet at home hung shirts that cost 50 times that much. Names, the clerk asked, not looking up. Olivia Chen and Clinton Anderson. The clerk's fingers flew across her keyboard. IDs and proof of residence. They slid their documents across the counter. Clinton watched the woman process his janitor's address, a studio apartment in Queens that he actually did rent and occasionally sleep in, just to maintain his cover. His real home, the Anderson estate in Connecticut, might as well have existed in another dimension. You understand this is a legal marriage, the clerk asked, finally looking at them with eyes that had seen every kind of couple imaginable. Not a commitment ceremony, not a partnership agreement. Legal marriage with all attendant rights and responsibilities. We understand, Olivia said, her voice steady. And you're entering into this of your own free will, without coercion. Clinton thought about the $100,000 he didn't need, the lie he was living, the woman beside him who deserved so much better than this. Yes, he said. The clerk studied them for a long moment, and Clinton wondered if she could sense the fraud radiating off them like heat. Then she stamped their application. Congratulations. There's a 24-hour waiting period. You can return tomorrow for the ceremony, or schedule it within 60 days. Next. Outside, the October air was crisp and clean, and Clinton felt like he'd just signed away something far more valuable than his fake bachelor status. Well, Olivia said, that was thoroughly unromantic. Should we get it over with tomorrow? You make it sound like a root canal. It's a business transaction. Might as well be efficient about it. But her voice wavered slightly, betraying nerve she wouldn't acknowledge. Clinton's phone buzzed, his real phone, hidden in his jacket. He ignored it. It had been buzzing all morning. The board was getting impatient. Thomas was getting worried. His father's company was running smoothly without him, which somehow made everything worse, proof that he'd never been necessary, just convenient. Coffee, he suggested. We should probably discuss it tomorrow. What we're wearing, if anyone's coming, whether we want to pretend this is actually special or just treat it like signing paperwork. Olivia looked at him strangely. Do you want it to be special? The question hung between them, loaded with implications neither of them was ready to address. I think, Clinton said carefully, that even fake weddings deserve some basic dignity. You built a $200 million company, Olivia. You deserve better than a 5-minute ceremony where the officiant is clearly thinking about their lunch break. Something shifted in her expression, surprise, maybe, or gratitude, or something deeper that made Clinton's chest tight. Okay, she said softly. Let's make it slightly special. Not special. Just, less depressing than the marriage bureau. They found a coffee shop 3 blocks away, tucked into a corner where the autumn sunlight slanted through windows that probably hadn't been cleaned in months. Clinton noticed immediately, occupational hazard of his cover identity. So, Olivia pulled out her phone, scrolling through what appeared to be a checklist. I'm thinking of the City Hall, noon ceremony. I'll wear something simple but nice. We should probably exchange rings, immigration will expect them. Nothing expensive. Maybe take a few photos for documentation. Very romantic, Clinton said dryly. It's not supposed to be romantic. It's supposed to be convincing. But she wasn't meeting his eyes, her fingers drumming against her coffee cup in that nervous tick he'd learned meant she was uncomfortable with something. What's wrong? Nothing. It's just. She finally looked up. My mother wants to come. Clinton set down his coffee. To the wedding? I told her I was getting married, had to, for the whole, proving I have a life thing, and she assumed she was invited. How could I say no? Sorry, Mom, you can't watch your only daughter get married because it's actually an immigration scam, didn't seem like a great option. So your mother will be there. And probably my aunt. And possibly my grandmother if she can get someone to cover her shift at the restaurant. Olivia looked genuinely distressed now. Clinton, I'm sorry. I know this complicates things. If you want to back out. I'm not backing out. The words came automatically, and Clinton realized he meant them. But if your family is coming, we need to make this believable. Really believable. Meaning? Meaning I should probably meet them before the wedding. Meaning we need a better story than we've been secretly dating. Meaning. He took a breath. Meaning we need to actually look like we're in love. Olivia stared at him. That's not in the contract. Immigration interviews aren't either, but they're coming. Your mother will ask questions. She'll watch how we interact. If we can't convince her, we'll never convince a federal officer. So what do you suggest? Clinton thought about the rom-coms his mother had loved before she died, before his father buried himself in work and money and emotional isolation. We practice. Spend real time together. Learn each other's tells and habits. Make this feel real enough that the lie becomes invisible. That sounds dangerous, Olivia said quietly. Probably. Clinton met her eyes. But we're already committed. Might as well do it right. She was quiet for a long moment, then nodded. Okay. Starting now, we're really dating. Tomorrow, we will get married. And somehow, we make everyone believe it's really real. Simple, Clinton said. They both knew it was anything but. Clinton stood outside Olivia's apartment building at 6:47 a.m., holding 2 cups of coffee and questioning every decision that had led to this moment. The building was nice, upscale but not ostentatious, the kind of place a successful young CEO would choose. Nothing like the penthouse she could actually afford, or the mansion he actually owned. They were both playing roles, he realized. Just different ones. His phone buzzed. Olivia, come up. 12B, doors open. Don't judge the mess. The apartment was immaculate. Not a dish out of place, not a cushion askew. It looked like a showroom, beautiful, expensive, and utterly impersonal. The only sign anyone actually lived here was a laptop on the dining table, surrounded by business documents, and a single framed photo of a woman who had to be Olivia's mother. In here. Olivia called from what he assumed was the bedroom. Clinton stayed firmly in the living room. I brought coffee. She emerged wearing a simple cream dress that somehow made her look both elegant and approachable. Her natural hair was styled in loose curls, and she'd done something subtle with makeup that made her dark skin glow. She looked beautiful. More than beautiful, she looked happy, nervous, and terrifyingly real. "You clean up nice," Clinton managed. "You don't." She gestured at his Target khakis and wrinkled button-down. "Please tell me that's not what you're wearing to our wedding. I thought we were keeping it low-key." "Low-key, not." I got dressed in the dark. She disappeared into her bedroom and emerged with a garment bag. I took the liberty. Don't be mad. Inside was a suit, nothing fancy, but well-tailored and infinitely better than anything Clinton supposedly owned. It was exactly what a janitor might wear to his wedding if his bride-to-be wanted him to look presentable. "Olivia, you didn't have to." "Yes, I did. My mother is coming, Clinton. She's going to take approximately 1 million photos and show them to everyone at her church. I need you to look like someone I'd actually marry." She paused. "No offense." "None taken." He held up the suit. "This is really thoughtful, actually." "Well, we're in this together now." Something flickered across her face, vulnerability, maybe, or fear. "Speaking of which, I should warn you about my mother. Grace Chen is a force of nature. She'll ask invasive questions, she'll touch your face, and she'll probably try to feed you even though we're literally just going to City Hall." Sounds terrifying. She is. But she's also the best person I know. Olivia's voice softened. She worked double shifts my entire childhood so I could have tutoring, violin lessons, every opportunity. She never dated, never remarried, never did anything for herself. Just worked and sacrificed and loved me fiercely. She looked away. Which is why lying to her about this feels particularly awful. Clinton wanted to tell her the truth then. Wanted to confess everything, the billions, the deception, the fact that he was perhaps the least qualified person on earth to judge anyone for lying. Instead, he said, "We don't have to do this. We can still back out. And lose the Singapore contract. Disappoint my mother again. Keep living this half-life where I'm successful but completely alone." She shook her head. "No. We're doing this. I just needed a moment of honesty about how terrible I feel about the dishonesty." That's very meta. Shut up and go change. 20 minutes later, they stood in front of her full-length mirror, him in the suit that fit perfectly, her in the cream dress, both of them looking like people who might actually be getting married for love instead of visa fraud. "We look good," Olivia observed. "We look like liars." "Same thing, apparently." She turned to face him. "Clinton, before we do this, before we stand in front of my mother and an officiant and legally bind ourselves in matrimonial fraud, I need to know something." His heart was hammered. "What? Why did you really say yes? And don't give me the $100,000 answer. I've watched you these past few days. You don't care about the money. So why?" Clinton looked at her, really looked at her, and realized that the truth, or at least part of it, was the only thing he could offer. "Because you're the first person in longer than I can remember who made me feel like I matter. Not for what I can do, or what I can provide, or what role I can play. Just, for being me. Even if you don't know everything about who me actually is." Olivia's eyes glistened. "That's either the sweetest thing anyone's ever said to me, or you're a better actor than I gave you credit for. Maybe both." She laughed, watery but genuine, and then, without warning, she kissed his cheek. Soft, brief, but enough to make his entire world tilt. "Thank you," she whispered. "For doing this. For being kind. For making this bizarre situation feel a little less insane." Before Clinton could respond, her doorbell rang. "That'll be my mother," Olivia said, panic flooding her voice. "Ready to meet your future mother-in-law?" "Absolutely not." "Good. Me neither." She grabbed his hand, warm, steady, real, and squeezed once. Let's go get married. They opened the door together, and Clinton Anderson, secret billionaire, stepped into the most authentic moment of his carefully constructed fake life. Grace Chen was 66 years old, barely 5 feet tall, and radiated the kind of energy that suggested she could bench press a city bus if sufficiently motivated. She took one look at Clinton and immediately cupped his face in her hands. "Too thin," she announced. "Olivia, your husband is too thin. When did he last eat a real meal?" "Mom, we're not married yet, and details." Grace waved dismissively, then pulled Clinton into a hug that somehow felt both aggressive and deeply comforting. "You're marrying my daughter. That makes you family. Family doesn't let family starve. Come, I brought dumplings. Mom, we have to leave for City Hall in 30 minutes. Then we eat fast." Somehow, Clinton found himself sitting at Olivia's dining table with a plate of homemade dumplings while Grace Chen interrogated him with the efficiency of a seasoned detective. "So, Clinton. You're a janitor." "Yes, ma'am." "How much money do you make?" "Mom." Olivia's face flushed with embarrassment. "What?" "It's a practical question. I'm a nurse, I understand service work. Honorable profession. I just want to know if you can support my daughter." "I can support myself," Olivia interjected firmly. "I know you can, baby. But marriage is a partnership." Grace turned back to Clinton, her eyes sharp but not unkind. "My daughter is brilliant. Successful. She could have married a doctor, a lawyer, some tech millionaire. Instead, she chose you. Why do you think that is?" Clinton felt Olivia tense beside him. This was the moment, the test. He could give the rehearsed answer, the safe answer. Or he could tell something closer to the truth. "Because I see her," he said quietly. "Not her company, not her success, not her potential value in a merger or acquisition. I see Olivia, the woman who works until midnight because she cares about her team, who remembers everyone's name, who still calls her mother every Sunday even when she's exhausted. I see someone extraordinary, and I don't need her to be anything other than exactly who she is." The silence that followed was deafening. Grace stared at him. Olivia stared at him. Even the dumplings seemed to be staring. Then Grace smiled, wide and genuine. "Okay. You can marry my daughter." "That's it?" Olivia sounded stunned. "That's your entire vetting process?" "I've been a nurse for 40 years. I know when someone is lying." Grace patted Clinton's hand. "This one tells the truth. Maybe not all of it, everyone has secrets, but the important parts are real." Clinton's stomach dropped. Did she know? Could she somehow sense the deception? "Now," Grace stood, "all business again, we need to leave. Can't be late to your own wedding. Olivia, where's your aunt? She said she'd meet us there." The next hour passed in a blur. City Hall was surprisingly crowded with couples, some in elaborate outfits, some in jeans, all of them looking more certain about their decisions than Clinton felt. Olivia's Aunt Linda arrived with a camera and enough enthusiasm to power a small city. Her grandmother called via video chat from the restaurant, her Cantonese commentary requiring translation from Grace. "She says you have kind eyes," Olivia whispered. "And that you better treat me well or she'll haunt you. She's not dead yet. She's very proactive about her haunting plans." Then they were standing in front of a city clerk who'd performed this ceremony roughly 8,000 times and had the emotional investment of someone reading microwave instructions. "Do you, Clinton Anderson, take Olivia Chen to be your lawfully wedded wife?" This was it. The point of no return. Clinton looked at Olivia, her hand trembling slightly in his, her eyes wide and vulnerable and trusting, and felt the weight of every lie he'd told crashing down simultaneously. "I do," he said. "Do you, Olivia Chen, take Clinton Anderson to be your lawfully wedded husband?" "I do. By the power vested in me by the state of New York, now pronounce you married." You may kiss. They discussed this. A brief, performative kiss. Nothing dramatic. Just enough to sell the moment. But when Clinton leaned in, when his lips met Olivia's, something shifted. The kiss was soft, tentative, and somehow more intimate than anything he'd experienced in his entire privileged life. It lasted maybe 3 seconds. It felt like an earthquake. They broke apart to applause from Grace and Linda, camera flashes capturing a moment that was simultaneously the most genuine and most fraudulent of Clinton's existence. Congratulations. Grace pulled them both into a crushing hug. My baby is married. Clinton, you're stuck with us now. Family dinners every Sunday. No exceptions. I'd like that, Clinton said, and meant it. They signed the marriage certificate with hands that shook for entirely different reasons. Olivia Chen Anderson and Clinton Anderson. Legally bound. Emotionally complicated. Completely unprepared for what came next. Outside City Hall, Olivia's hand found his. Well, husband, she said, trying for lightness but landing somewhere near terrified, what do we do now? Clinton looked at their joined hands, his calloused for manual labor he didn't need to do, hers smooth but bearing the marks of constant typing and stress. I guess we will figure out how to get married. Any ideas? Not a single one. Olivia laughed, and the sound was equal parts joy and panic. Perfect. We're doomed. But she didn't let go of his hand. Have you ever committed to something that felt right and terrifying at the same time? What happened? Share your story in the comments, we'd love to hear it. The immigration interview was scheduled for 3 weeks after the wedding. 3 weeks to transform a legal fiction into a believable reality. 3 weeks to learn how to be married to someone you barely knew but were increasingly unable to stop thinking about. Clinton was failing spectacularly at maintaining professional distance. You're doing it again, Olivia said without looking up from her laptop. They were in her apartment. His apartment was too small and depressing for regular visits, so they'd agreed to spend most evenings at hers, building a pattern immigration could track. Doing what? Staring at me like I'm a puzzle you're trying to solve. Sorry. Clinton returned his attention to the book he wasn't actually reading. They'd been sitting in comfortable silence for the past hour, her working on quarterly projections while he pretended to care about whatever novel he'd grabbed from her shelf. This had become their routine. He'd finish his janitorial shift at 11, come to her apartment, and they'd exist in the same space until one or both of them fell asleep. Sometimes they talked. Sometimes they didn't. It felt more intimate than any relationship Clinton had experienced in his previous life, and they'd barely touched since the wedding kiss that still haunted his dreams. We need to practice, Olivia said suddenly, closing her laptop. Practice what? Being married. Immigration interviews are intense, Clinton. They'll ask about everything, what side of the bed I sleep on, what I eat for breakfast, what we argue about. We need to know each other's answers. She was right, of course. Olivia was always right about practical matters. But there was something in her voice, a tension that suggested this wasn't just about the interview. Okay, Clinton said carefully. What do you want to know? Everything. She pulled out her phone, scrolling through what appeared to be a list of common immigration questions. Let's start simple. What's my favorite color? Blue. Deep blue, specifically. Like the dress you wore to that tech conference last month. Her eyebrows rose. How did you? I pay attention. Clinton shrugged. Your turn. What's mine? You don't have one. You once said that favorite colors are arbitrary constructs created by greeting card companies. I did say that. He was surprised she remembered. But if you had to choose, it would be green. Like the park where we had tacos that first night. You looked more relaxed there than I've ever seen you. Something tightened in Clinton's chest. She was right. She was paying attention too. They went through the list methodically. Morning routines, coffee preferences, childhood memories carefully edited to maintain their respective cover stories. With each question, the line between performance and reality blurred a little more. "Okay, harder question," Olivia said. "What's my biggest fear?" Clinton didn't hesitate. "That you'll wake up one day and realize you've become your work. That you'll look in the mirror and see a company instead of a person." Olivia's breath caught. "How do you?" "Because it's my fear too." The confession escaped before he could stop it. "That I've spent so long being what other people needed that I've forgotten who I actually am." Clinton, her voice was soft, vulnerable in a way he'd never heard. "Who are you? Really? Because sometimes I look at you and I see someone who doesn't quite fit. Like you're playing a role that's too small for you." His heart was hammered. This was it, the moment to come clean, to tell her everything. The mansion, the billions, the elaborate deception. But the words stuck in his throat, trapped behind years of watching his father's relationships crumble under the weight of wealth and suspicion. "I'm just a guy trying to figure out his life," he said instead, hating himself for the cowardice. "That's not an answer. It's the only one I have right now." They stared at each other across the coffee table, the air thick with things unsaid. Then Olivia's phone buzzed, a sharp, unwelcome intrusion. She glanced at it and her expression shifted from vulnerable to all business in seconds. "It's my COO. There's a problem with the Singapore deal. I need to go handle it." She hesitated, laptop half closed, clearly torn between work and whatever this moment had been. Work won. It always won with Olivia. Clinton watched her disappear into her home office, heard her voice shift into CEO mode, confident, commanding, completely in control. He pulled out his real phone, the one he kept hidden, and saw 17 missed calls from Thomas. He called back. "Clinton, thank God. The board is demanding your presence. They're threatening to declare you incapacitated and transfer control to." "Let them." "What?" "Let them threaten. Let them panic. I'm not coming back yet." Clinton looked toward Olivia's office, where she was visible through the glass door pacing as she talked. "I'm in the middle of something important. More important than an $8 billion empire." The answer should have been no. The answer his father would have given was definitely no. But Clinton found himself saying, yes. Actually, yes. Thomas was quiet for a long moment. "You're falling for her. That's ridiculous. This is a business arrangement. Clinton, I've known you since you were 8 years old. I can tell when you're lying." "Then you know I can't tell her the truth." "Not yet." "When, then?" "When she finds out on her own and hates you for it. When immigration discovers the deception and you both face fraud charges." "When?" "I'll figure it out." Clinton hung up before Thomas could point out all the ways this could end in disaster. Through the glass door, Olivia caught his eye and smiled, tired but genuine. She mouthed, "Sorry," and pointed at her phone apologetically. Clinton smiled back and waved her off, even as his own phone buzzed again with messages from a life he was increasingly certain he didn't want to return to. He was married to a woman who didn't know his real identity, lying about everything except his feelings, and somehow, impossibly, he'd never felt more like himself. The irony was going to kill him. The immigration interview was in 6 hours, and Clinton Anderson's 2 lives were about to collide in the worst possible way. It started with a phone call at 4:47 a.m. Clinton was asleep on Olivia's couch. Their arrangement to make the marriage look legitimate had evolved into him spending most nights there, though they still maintained separate sleeping spaces. His real phone, hidden in his jacket pocket, vibrated with an urgency that penetrated his dreams. "Thomas." Again. Clinton slipped into the bathroom to answer. "This better be life or death." "Close enough. The Wall Street Journal is running a story tomorrow morning, missing heir, where is Clinton Anderson?" "They've connected dots, Clinton. Your disappearance, the janitorial job, everything. It goes live at 6 a.m. The floor tilted beneath Clinton's feet. How did they? Does it matter? You have hours before your wife learns she married a billionaire from the morning news. I'd suggest telling her yourself. Immediately. Clinton ended the call, his hands shaking. Through the bathroom door, he could hear Olivia moving around the kitchen, probably making the overly strong coffee she preferred before high-stakes meetings. She'd been nervous about the immigration interview all week, reviewing their answers obsessively, determined to get every detail perfect. And he'd been lying to her about everything. He found her at the kitchen counter, already dressed in a sharp navy suit, her natural hair pulled back professionally. She looked up and smiled, the genuine, unguarded smile she'd started giving him over the past 3 weeks. The one that made him feel like maybe he deserved happiness. Morning, husband. Ready to convince the federal government we're madly in love? Olivia, we need to talk. Something in his voice made her smile falter. That's never a good way to start a conversation. What's wrong? Clinton opened his mouth, searching for words that wouldn't destroy everything. But before he could speak, Olivia's phone lit up with a notification. Then another. Then a cascade of them, buzzing like angry hornets. She picked it up, frowning. What the? Her face went pale as she read. Then she looked at Clinton, and the betrayal in her eyes was a physical blow. Tell me this is a joke, she whispered. Tell me the Wall Street Journal didn't just publish an article about how Clinton Anderson, heir to the Anderson fortune, has been missing for 6 months and was last seen. She scrolled, her hand shaking. Working as a janitor at Sterling Commercial Plaza. Olivia. $8 billion. Her voice was hollow. You have $8 billion, and you let me offer you $100,000 to marry me. You let me think I was helping you. You let me, she broke off, tears streaming down her face. Was any of it real? Or was I just entertainment for a bored billionaire playing dress-up? It was real. Olivia, everything I felt was real. You don't even know what real means. She was shouting now, her professional composure shattered. Real is what I thought we had. Real is me trusting you with my company, my future, my mother's approval. Real is not lying about your entire identity. I know. I know, and I'm sorry. Sorry. She laughed bitterly. We have an immigration interview in 5 hours, Clinton. Or should I call you Mr. Anderson? Do you have any idea what happens if they find out this marriage is fraudulent? I lose everything. My visa, my Singapore deal, my reputation, possibly my freedom. And you go back to your mansion and your billions and your real life, while I'm left dealing with the consequences of trusting the wrong person. That's not what's going to happen. Get out. Her voice was cold now, flat. The CEO voice she used to destroy competitors. Get out of my apartment. Out of my life. I'll handle immigration myself. I'll tell them we had a fight, that the marriage was a mistake, whatever I need to say to protect myself from your mess. Olivia, please. I said get out. Clinton had never felt more helpless, not even when watching his father die surrounded by lawyers who cared more about the estate than the man. He wanted to fight, to explain, to somehow make her understand that the past 3 weeks had been the most honest of his entire life, even built on lies. But the look in her eyes told him there was nothing he could say. Not now. Maybe not ever. He left. 2 hours later, Clinton sat in Thomas's office, still wearing his janitor uniform, staring at a phone that wouldn't ring. She's not going to call, Thomas said gently. I know. The board wants a statement. The press wants a statement. Your shareholders want. I don't care. Clinton looked at his attorney, his father's friend, the man who'd watched him grow from a boy into whatever he'd become. I need to fix this, Thomas. Tell me how to fix this. Can you? She trusted you, and you lied. That's not something money can fix. Clinton thought about Olivia's face, the betrayal, the tears. Then he thought about her determination, her brilliant mind, her fierce independence. No, he said slowly. But maybe the truth can. He pulled out his phone, his real phone, the one connected to his real life, and started making calls. To his board. To his lawyers. To everyone who'd spent 6 months wondering where the Anderson heir had disappeared to. By noon, Clinton had done something his father never would have. He'd called a press conference to tell the complete, messy, vulnerable truth. And somewhere across the city, Olivia Chen watched the broadcast in her silent apartment, her immigration interview postponed, her heart broken, her mind working through a problem she'd never expected to face. How do you forgive someone who gave you everything you wanted while taking away the one thing you needed, honesty?